Welcome to the podcast. I'm Eric Salzman, joined by Kevin Doherty and Richie Bennett. Hi,
Ha-
guys. Happy May Day.
Happy May
Happy
Day.
May Day.
Yeah.
Mm.
So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the stocks. If I told you that oil would be, I mean, WTI few crude futures got to I think about 107 the other day, and Brent, like you said earlier, Richie, went up to 126, I believe. That's Brent crude. And if I told you that the Fed just had a meeting and there were four dissents in the vote, three of which were basically saying, no way, we're not cutting rates anytime soon. And if you look at like where the Fed fund futures say, it's actually by the middle of next year. I was looking yesterday, by the June meeting of 2027, they predict a much greater chance of the Fed going 20, having increased 25 basis points, and even a small chance of going 50. And the odds of a cut are like negligible. What else we got? We have the war, of course. We've got, we just had the earnings come out from, from the hyperscalers or the metas of the world, and they're going to continue to just keep spending like billions and billions of dollars. We had OpenAI, which I think the entire market seems to be balanced on, not meeting certain internal revenue goals or something that scared everybody. And we got this war going on. And yet, here we are, setting new highs seemingly every day. And take it away, boys. Explain this to me.
So I think part of it, um, at the end of the day, right? Like the 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 stock market is really about earnings, right? So you can paint all kinds of pictures, which you just did, and if the earnings are tremendous, it's going to push things up. Now, again, on the flip side, we always talk about how it's a predictor of 6 to 9 months out, right? The stock market usually is a predictor. So what this is saying, kind of, if you believe that, is things are going to be really good in like the fall and the winter. Like that, it's basically pricing in the war will be over and it'll all be a good outcome for U.S. based assets, and the inflation, I guess, is going to drop because that, what it's the way you said, like the oil's at 126, the Brent, like how can, and we were talking before about like they were hell bent, the Fed was hell bent on that 2% number, getting it back to 2%, right? And we're in like the threes, and everybody's like, yeah, but the new guy, Warsh, he's going to lower rates because he's friends with Trump, and but it's a voting thing, right? It's not a dictatorship, right? So if you have dissents like this, it's not going to happen, right?
Right.
But the big, like the last few days, I think have been like people took a big sigh of relief on some of those big Mag 7 guys. Like Apple really killed it. I mean,
Mhm.
print money, that company, it's amazing. And the stock is following, of course. Keep in mind, too, a lot of these indices, certainly the Dow, is heavily weighted toward higher priced stocks. So when you have like a Goldman Sachs trading at $900 a share, if that has a good day or a bad day, the Dow will move. So there's only 30 stocks in Dow, right? The S&P is a little different because there's 500, but because 493 of them aren't the Mag 7, and when the Mag 7 goes one way or the other, that moves it too, because the Mag 7 is about 38 to 40% of the S&P, which is
Yep.
amazing. And then obviously the Nasdaq is all tech. So yes, if the software apocalypse keeps happening, that could hurt the Nasdaq. But all people hear now is tech, and Apple and Nvidia and all these guys are printing good earnings. So yes, we're happy. Everybody's happy. Let's go. But for a guy like me, again, I consider myself a value type guy. Like I don't see it. I don't see it sustainable for very, very long. I mean, as the famous saying is, the market can stay irrational for longer than you have money is a good one. Right? I don't think I would short it here, but I'm not like jumping up and down saying, "Hey, this is what value we have here, what cheapness."
Wasn't I read something, I think I read it right. It was last week that I think it was Barron's put out that based on where forward earnings are projected, PE ratios are actually very cheap. It's like something that hasn't happened for quite a while, that you just have these amazing earnings. And so maybe people look at that and say, hey, this market's still cheap based on those
Completely,
earnings projections.
completely. I think when you have guys like these big guys printing money, I mean it's just amazing. Yeah, I think people are like, you know what, those forward PE numbers are showing us that it's cheap and it's good to go into these companies because they're just going to make money for the foreseeable future.
Mhm.
But that OpenAI commentary this week, OpenAI is not public, obviously, but they're trying to be. But they missed some numbers in their internal reporting to their constituents, and it got leaked out. And it may not be as rosy as people are portraying it for years and years and years.
Mm. Yeah, I think one thing that I think I read it this morning was that, a lot of it's just due to competition. Like now you got Anthropic and you've got and Alphabet or Google's just crushing it, right? Like they're catching up, they think, and taking, in certain amounts of the market they're beginning to take. So I guess the question is it cool to have three or four of those guys all like can they all crank, or at some point does one of them just drop? And I think you or Kevin said that months ago about that there is a potential that just because you're number one now doesn't mean you're not going to be number eight, and irrelevant, 3 years from now or 2 years from now.
I was just going to say that the great, the old guys, talk about Buffett, Graham, all those guys. Their thing was always, okay, got it. Like this is the new thing, whatever it is, automobiles, airlines, pick a life changing, world changing product, right? Which AI certainly is, right? But you can't tell me who's the winner going to
Yeah.
be in 5 years from now, right? Like,
Yeah. There's no moats yet.
no moats. So what those guys would do, you always saw like Buffett talk about like management, right? Like his thing was always like, who's running the show? Like those are the people that can maneuver and maybe make a moat where it looks like there can't be a moat or it isn't a moat. But I'll put my chips down with those guys and gals because I think they have their stuff together and they understand. So when you have a guy like Altman, who's running OpenAI, and they've had a much publicized lawsuit case in court this week with Elon Musk on the other side, right? Musk's complaint is they started this company as a nonprofit, and all of a sudden it became for profit. Maybe people don't trust Altman after all this, but you don't know. Like nobody knows. I mean, no. But yes,
It does seem
the technology will stay, right? Whatever the product is will stay. You just can't tell who the winner will be at the end of the
yeah.
day.
Kevin?
And I'm in at risk of sounding like a complete idiot because, I'm not in that sector. It does seem like there are, so like in the early social media .com space, there was a winner take all effect because of the network that got built up. So, once Facebook became the place to be, MySpace, friends, they faded away because, everybody's on Facebook. But with these AI, people are hopping and skipping between these, whoever has the lead today, whoever has the best product today. And it just doesn't feel like it's going to have that same kind of stickiness that
Mhm.
you had with Facebook or Apple for that matter, because an iPhone was, better than a BlackBerry or better than a Samsung. And you just don't have that with these AI companies yet.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I just notice I do bounce between one and the other, and I think I pay for Gemini. I'm just using Chat GPT, I'm just using the free version, so I'm not even using the best model. I'm using kind of and the only thing that does is, and I'm sure eventually that'll go away, but right now, I've been using it pretty heavily for a project I'm working on, and it'll tell you after like an hour, hey, dude, they put you in they give you a timeout for a few hours, and then you can come back in and start doing this again in 5 hours or something like that. Um,
It's like
but
your
and you
mom
can
saying, "Will you go out and play now? Put the
Yeah.
book down. Turn off the TV."
right, stop watching that porn. I didn't tell you what the project was, but but yeah, and it's great because you could ask three of them at the same time, like to try to solve a problem for you. And it's really incredible as sometimes the different takes. So I'm working, there's a company that I kind of work with, and they've got very complicated insurance and collateral protection products. So I'm working on an idea. And I cannot believe it. I pull up this thing and I say, "Can you tell me what X companies this product? Like, if I apply it to this credit union, what will it do?" And in seconds, it comes back and knows exactly what the product is. And it's a very intricate inside baseball type thing. It knows what it is. It knows how it's applied. I say, hey, pull up tell me this credit union. It immediately goes to the NCUA, the website for the guys who regulate the credit unions, and it starts pulling financials, and I'm reconciling. I'm looking at the physical copy of that credit union, and it's getting the answers. Sometimes it's wrong, but it gets the answers right. And if you correct it, it says, "Oh shit, yeah, you're right. I pulled from the wrong place." And it's happening in seconds. And it's like you can. What I always think about this stuff is like I'm learning. And a friend of mine told me this once. He said it overcomes inertia. And what I mean is I have a problem and I ask it, hey, what do you think? And it comes back and it tells you, it may be not 100% right. You may not agree with it, but you find all of a sudden you got from point A to point D, right? Pretty quick. And now you can work on that problem. So it's just incredible. I mean, are they going to monetize it though? I mean, I think I pay $20 a month for Gemini. I think OpenAI for the same kind of level has the same 25 bucks a month. Um, is that enough to
Yeah, I mean, I look at one of the great technologies as well was cable TV, right? Like HBO started in like 1970, whatever. Cablevision was started in Long Island by Mr. Dolan. And, people sat there for 40 years saying, oh, we got these guys. Like, this is a captive audience. They all get their TV this way. They all want the product. They're going to pay every month. And then all of a sudden, kablooey, right? If you didn't have a good streaming package, you're cooked. Now, I think we're going back the other way, whereas a lot of these people who thought cutting the cord of cable was going to save them money, which it did for a bit, but now they all have like 12 different streaming services, so it's the same bill after a while. But, stuff like that, like how can that even, they can't break that thing forever. Like there's no way. What could possibly happen? And what's in the back room somewhere is this quantum thing, right? That's the next thing.
Oh yeah.
Quantum, right? So like if the technology for quantum moves so quickly that we've never seen before, like AI might be like a flash in the pan. Like that's what I think some people are betting on. Like they're like, yeah, that thing will be done in like 3 years. All these guys like running around with data centers and stuff like that. Yeah, we have something else. And you don't know.
Well, what's kind of nice is that, just like, I mean, I think it was it's Meta, because you remember Zuckerberg said he's whacking like, what was it like? I don't know if he said, I think it was 10,000 people. I don't know if it was 10,000 or 10. He's whacking a big percentage of the workforce
Mm,
because of the AI spending. It said that the people who are remaining, they have the technology to track all of their movements of their mouse, and basically it's shadowing the current employees that are still left to
right.
then figure out how to replace them. And the
Right. So even
people
if you don't sign up to teach AI your job, they're going to do it for you. It'll just
Now, what's
follow along.
interesting is maybe AI will solve quantum, and then AI ends up in the same position.
Right.
Fuck you, bot.
Right.
You're out.
It's great. It's crazy. So yeah, I think I'm neutral. I'm not going to step in front of a freight train with this market. It's just rolling.
Right.
But again, if you look at the weighted, the equal weighted market, it's starting to slip again, right? So like that means a few guys are driving the bus for the market to go higher. So it looks. I mean, if you're an indexer, right? If you're in the Vanguard or whatever Schwab 500 S&P 500 fund, you don't care, right? You're just like, oh, okay, look, my thing is at an all-time high again. This is great. Everything's great. But digging down, you can see like if a couple of these things falter, it might not be so happy times. We'll see.
Yeah. I noticed that last week, I just don't have it in front of me, there were two large uh, private credit companies, meaning the debtors, two companies went non-accrual, which basically means like they're on their way to, Palookaville. And one of them was I'm trying to remember, but not both. One was a software company. The other one was like I think a dental device company.
Mm.
Um, and I think I think Blackstone's BCred, that's their big BDC. They marked it down to like 80 cents on the dollar. But these are, and again, the fact that you're seeing this coming out, and here's the thing, I when I get to private credit, you don't see a post-mortem, right? Like what went wrong with that company, right? Because well, and the reason why I want to know is like if if it was, ABC Bank down the block, who that was, they were a real middle market lender and they knew everything and they knew the company and the whole thing. Like, would they be in the same spot? Like, did the train get too far down the tracks to not be able to, at this point, not really be able to do anything but write it down to probably at some point zero? Um, the fact that the bank, the private credit guy, again, and sitting in New York, has no way to monitor and track and do the things that a true middle market lender did. So I'd love them to start showing some of that, like what happened. What happened? Is it the economy? Is it bad management? Is it, that they're number two or three? Maybe they only had five big, five big people that bought their product and two of them went away or went somewhere else. Like you don't know that. And that's the other thing is you just don't know what's going on in these portfolios. And you probably won't until they get written down.
The
And
key.
at the same time,
Go ahead,
you've
Kev.
you've got Blackstone, Apollo, and KKR are all up in the last 6 weeks between 25 and 30%, their equity price.
Right.
And even Blue Owl is up about 18%.
Mhm.
So as you're saying, well, we have no reason to believe that they've worked through the problem, but you look at the equity and it's saying, hey, maybe it won't be so bad after all. Now, to be fair, Bear Stearns and Lehman, they nothing goes down in a straight line.
Right.
So maybe that's just an opportunity now for people who are worried. You've got another bite at the apple to, go out and if you want to hedge that risk, you can short those things at a lot higher price than you could 6 weeks ago.
Mm. Right.
And
More
I
fun to
think,
have.
yeah, I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Some of those companies like KKR, um, this private credit stuff is such a small space of their entire business, right? Like they have stuff going on every which way, everywhere. So maybe that's part of it for those guys. Like, yeah, all right, our stock has gone down like 50%. And if we marked everything in our private credit portfolio to zero, we would be down 5%. Like that would be our hit. So there may be some of that. But obviously, the key word is private. So, as you were saying, Eric, we may never, ever get to hear the true stories because nobody has to tell the story. Right? I mean,
And
unless
nobody
there's like,
knows.
it's like you need like one of those guys like Michael Lewis on the inside to write a
Right.
book. Like this is what went down. I was sitting on that desk, and this is how it went down, and this is what people said to each other. But until you get that, nobody's gonna.
There is good news, though. I saw
Oh,
it was a couple of weeks ago. Fed asks about U.S. banks' exposure to private credit firms.
hmm.
So the horse is galloping out of the barn, heading down the road, and now the Fed and now Treasury and now everybody's now going to try to get their hands around this thing, like putting their hands around a live hand grenade at this point. Yeah.
But at least that's better than in years past, in crises past, right? Like people, certain people would be like, watch that thing, and nobody would watch, or they would like poo-poo it,
Right.
and then kablooey, and then everybody has to talk about it and figure out what happened. So there hasn't been a big kablooey in the private credit markets yet. And if people are really, really focused on what's going on, maybe it's okay.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears. Kevin, you got a DeFi story to tell us?
Yeah, I do. It's a good time to talk about it too. I mean, as opposed to what Richie was just describing, where private credit, it's private, it's hidden, you don't really know what's going on. In crypto, everything is public, everything's on the blockchain for the most part, and you see exactly what's going on in real time. And there was a big, big, big exploit in the decentralized finance space, or DeFi, about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago tomorrow.
Oh, Kevin,
And
can you just maybe just a little introduction to what the DeFi world is, just quick.
yeah, so it is uh, decentralized finance is basically replicating many of the financial operations that people engage in, the big ones being exchange and lending and borrowing, and doing that through these protocols, these DeFi protocols, as we call them, that are built on top of a smart contract platform. And the big one there is Ethereum. And so basically, what Ethereum allows people to do is it's a computer, it's a smart contract. It can execute and validate transactions in a very public, open, permissionless way so anybody can use it. And so that is the beauty of what Ethereum is. It's basically like a world database, world computer where transactions can take place. And so these protocols that are built on top of Ethereum, we've mentioned before that two big ones. One is an exchange protocol. It's called Uniswap, and you think of it, it could be like Coinbase. You buy and sell tokens on that exchange. The other big blue chip is called Aave, and it's a lending and borrowing protocol. And what that means is if I hold, let's say I have 1,000 Ethereum and I want to generate some income on that, I will go onto the Aave platform and I will lock my Ethereum onto their into one of their lending pools, is what they're called. Someone on the other side who wants to borrow, let's say 1,000 Ethereum, will pay a borrowing cost, and then me as the depositor, I get a bit of income. And so
Mhm.
think of it like a bank deposit. And so one of the um, key characteristics of this whole decentralized finance system is that it is interoperable in mostly in a permissionless way. And I'll try my best to explain this in terms that a normal person could understand. And I mean normal in a good way, because I think the DeFi system makes things far more complicated than they need to be. And it invents terms when they could just, use terms everybody's already familiar with. But basically, what that means is that all of these DeFi protocols can work with each other, and they kind of connect with each other like Lego bricks. So instead of having, JP Morgan, where there's lending, borrowing, there's derivatives, there's brokerage, they have FX, it's all one-stop shop. In DeFi, each one of those activities will be performed by a different protocol, which is attractive because you can then create your own protocol and add into this ecosystem where there are, literally tens and sometimes hundreds of billions of deposits and trillions of dollars of activity in this system.
Hmm.
So if you create a better mousetrap, you can plug in and The system in theory can um, improve in ways that a very centralized system cannot.
Hmm.
That's a theory. Now, the downside and the risk of that is because there are all these interconnected entities. If one of them gets exploited, contagion can spread pretty quickly throughout the DeFi ecosystem. And that's exactly what happened 2 weeks ago. Now, I'll fast forward to why I think this is important. Is It's one of the biggest hacks. It's not a hack. It was an exploit. Um, one of the biggest exploits that's taken place, and it really hit the ecosystem hard. Well, there was a huge amount of money that was withdrawn from the DeFi ecosystem afterwards because people were worried that their deposits might be exposed to this mess. But it's also caused more than any time in the past that I can recall. All the different ecosystem participants, or many of them, the really big ones, to get together and say, okay, there are a few fundamental problems we need to fix. And there is necessary fixes that need to take place that are now being implemented. It's only been 2 weeks, so things are still ongoing, but there are some real changes that are being made. For people who are not yet involved in DeFi, you don't need to worry about any of this. Um, it doesn't affect Bitcoin really, which is the main thing that people are going to dip their toes into first. It definitely affects Ethereum and its potential going forward. But the thing for the normal person to do now is just watch and wait and see if some of these fundamental problems can be fixed. Um,
So, so again, we go back to the same topic. So, do you think because of this situation, you could have, I think, I don't know what the correlation is with the crypto movements, but they all seem to kind of move the same. When one of them's up, they're all
yeah.
up. Do you think now, like, if they don't address this problem, will the price of Ethereum not go up as much as Bitcoin because Ethereum could be held back, or vice versa?
Yeah,
Right.
that's definitely the risk. I mean,
Yeah.
Ethereum is very much the decentralized finance, DeFi. That is Ethereum's killer app right now. That's its
Right.
reason for being.
Right.
And if there's a broad kind of turning away from DeFi, or a sense that look, these problems are just going to keep recurring, which really, if that fatally kills the narrative of DeFi, then Ethereum is going to have a really hard time going
So you
forward.
Right.
do like a
So,
pairs,
so
do you like a pairs trade?
You
Like,
yeah.
could. I mean, there wasn't that much. You wouldn't have done that well if on a Bitcoin Ethereum pair trade over the last 2 weeks. Even though this really did this hack, and I'll explain it very briefly because there's another important element to this. So there is a protocol called Kelp DAO. DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So all of these will be called DAO or something. And the exploit basically drained $290 million worth of Ethereum tokens from different parts of the ecosystem. And the main one that got hit was Aave. And I'll come back to this because I first want to say that the group that did this exploit is the same group that has done most of the big exploits in DeFi and in crypto,
does
frankly,
that mean
over
stealing
time.
exploits?
Yeah, and I'll explain. It does matter, but this group, it's a state-sponsored North Korean hacking group, and called Lazarus. So most of this stuff that it's done, and everyone knows who does it. But North Korea is a hermit kingdom, and that what are you going to do about it? But Switzerland had their banking secrecy laws that were, finally pressured by the U.S. to be ended, and other Germany and other countries didn't like Switzerland having those laws because Switzerland wanted to be in the community of nations. North Korea doesn't give a shit about that. And so that's a problem because when you have state-sponsored hackers and state-protected hackers operating with impunity, and in fact getting, rewarded for this, that's a tough problem to solve. Um, the other problem is the way to think about this. When I say exploits, because it wasn't a bug in the protocol that was exploited. It's kind of hard to explain, but there was a message, a fake message was spoofed, which which KelpDAO thought was a real message. And what they act as is you deposit your Ethereum on KelpDAO, and then they issue you a token which you can use to deposit someplace else. I know this sounds insane to, again, the normal person, but this is a common thing in DeFi. They were sent a message that turned out to be false and created by this Lazarus group saying, hey, go out and create the $290 million of Ethereum. We're going to deposit that in. Sorry, let me step back. There's a message saying we are depositing $290 million worth of Ethereum into your protocol. Now you issue us $290 million worth of your token, which they did. And within minutes, they took those $290 million worth of tokens, deposited them on Aave and a few other protocols, and then withdrew other tokens from Aave.
Spoof.
Spoofed it. Yes. But now they got real, they spoofed, they said, hey, $290 million is on the way. It wasn't, but they were able to withdraw $290 million worth of Ethereum, which they then, within minutes, tried to launder. Now, a bunch of it was stopped in its tracks. But, there's a fundamental problem here. Back in the day, if you remember the movie Catch Me If You Can, right? Yeah. There were hundreds, thousands of these guys running around the country exploiting the fragilities of the banking system where, you could deposit a check that had nothing behind it, but then you had 2 or 3 days to withdraw the amount that you supposedly deposited. But you could only do that at, 800 or $1,000 at a time. You couldn't
Right.
roll into, one Chase Manhattan Plaza in New York and say, yeah, I deposited a check in your Atlanta branch for 100 million. Can you give me 95 million of that in cash right now? I mean, so there's a scale problem with DeFi that as it currently stands, people can move, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars in a matter of minutes. That was seen as one of the features of the system. And now one thing that's being discussed is maybe to slow down the ability to move big amounts of token value to address this type of situation. But then that calls into question the whole defining purpose of DeFi to begin with.
Right. Who's going to do that? There's going to be some centralized thing to do that, right?
Yeah. So it's, again, the key takeaway, the bottom line here is that it does feel like there are things happening now to address some of the flaws in the system. And if they don't address these flaws now, it could be you just these flaws need to get fixed, or there's no reason to really pay that close attention to what they're doing.
So it goes back to, again, which seems to be a common theme in these times. Cryptocurrency is going to work. Nobody right now can say who the leader will be.
Except for Bitcoin. And I should stress, like, Bitcoin is its own thing. It's store of value. The Bitcoin code and the Bitcoin network has never been hacked, not once. And it is the biggest honeypot in the world, and it's been a giant honeypot for 5 years. It's been a big honeypot for 10 years. So sending and receiving Bitcoin is perfectly, I mean, there are, just as you can get socially engineered hacked and, but the Nigerian print scam or something like that and send money to someone you shouldn't send money to. as long as you know who you're sending your Bitcoin to, you have nothing to worry about in terms of the network being compromised.
Right.
But the thing is, with DeFi, that's just Bitcoin going to Bitcoin. If you're engaging in DeFi, now you're relying on Ethereum and Aave and KelpDAO, and you could be relying up to 4 or 5 different entities, and with the strongest chain, the weakest link problem comes into play. So Bitcoin is its own separate animal. It should not be overly affected by this, but the rest of the ecosystem is yes,
Hmm.
it's got
This
issues.
morning, the North Koreans may have attacked me because this morning I got an email that said that I can't even remember who it was, but somebody in my email usernames deposited $10 in my Venmo account. And all I had to do was send them my banking information so they could transfer it from the Venmo to the.
I tell you, everybody like we used to call him the old Hawaii 5-0 criminal was Wo Fat. He was Chinese, Wo Fat, back in the day in the Hawaii 5-0. So people used to call this North Korean guy Wo Fat, right? But every turn, right? Like this guy seems to outfox, even though he looks like, a clown or whatever. And but like Iran is trying to do what this guy has done, which is like, nah, I got the nukes, guy. I can send these missiles anywhere I want. And yeah, okay, we got this crypto stuff. Like, yeah, I got the hackers. They can take anything they want.
Right.
But here I am, and my 13-year-old daughter is going to take over for me at some point.
Oh, you mean North Korea?
Yeah. And it's crazy. But, it's real.
Yep. All right.
Maybe the Donald, since he has such a big family stake in DeFi right now, I mean, someone should tap him on the shoulder
Well, he did.
and
He did
say,
do that.
"Hey, when you're next time you're dealing with North Korea, why don't one of your negotiating chips should be you guys got to stop doing this crap."
Yeah, because it was his first term, right, where he was bragging about the fact that he was the first president since North Korea and South Korea blew up to go visit. He visited North Korea. He met Kim Jong Il. So,
Little Rocket Man, right?
yeah, that's what you call him, Little Rocket Man.
All right. Let's switch gears to what I know everybody's been waiting for. And I'm going to tee this up for you, Richie, because it's the first Saturday in May tomorrow.
It's such a fabulous time. It's such a great thing. It's such an American tradition.
All right. Ready?
I'm ready.
Guys, you're supposed to sing along to the.
Oh, I thought there was going to be sound. My old Kentucky home. A wonderful thing. So we got we can't scare the girls away because the Kentucky Oaks is today. We are talking now May 1st, 2026. These are the 3-year-old girl horses, also called fillies, that race in the most important girl race of the season. They stretch this stuff out. It's crazy. The post time for the Kentucky Oaks today is 8:40 p.m. Eastern time. I hope they have good lights in Kentucky. So I like the 9, always a runner, and the 4, Counting Stars. 2 girls that have done well. So I'm going to box that, which means I'm going to box a 4-9 exacta. which means they both have to come first and second, but it can come either way. So if the 9-4 comes in or the 4-9 comes in, we win. That's Kentucky Oaks tonight. And then the big race, the Kentucky Derby tomorrow. I just took a sip of my mint julep. I'm ready to go. You got a lot of scratches, which means other horses get in. But I'm going to go with, write the numbers down, 6, 12, 15, 18. And I will box those as well, which means I will play them in an exacta. So 4 of those horses, out of those 4 horses, 2 have to come in first and second. I will box them in a trifecta. 4 of those horses, 3 of them must come 1, 2, 3. And then the really hard one is the superfecta, which means all those numbers that I just said must come first, second, third, or fourth. So why I boxed it, the 18 and the 6 are trained by the same guy, Brad Cox, who's very good. But it's really hard to have 2 horses as a trainer in the Kentucky Derby and you come first and second. I don't think it's ever happened, but I think those 2 will be in there. Then there's 12, which is what's his? Chief Wallaby. I was going to call him Captain Wallaby. Chief Wallaby, trained by Bill Mott, a Hall of Famer trainer, ridden by Junior Alvarado. I think he'll be in there. And then, Kevin, you'll like the 15 call because there's a guy named Flavian Pratt who has run in 18 derbies as a jockey. He has never come worse than 4th, which is amazing. That 15 horse's name, Emerging Market.
Ooh, like it.
And he is in the early morning line, let me see, 15-1. So if those combinations of 6, 12, 15, 18 come in, like you're playing your local lottery, we're going to make a lot of money.
What are the odds, roughly? I know they
so
changed.
Like the 6 in the morning is 6-1. The 12 is 8-1. The 15 is 15-1. And the 18 is 6-1. So
that's going to pay out a lot.
Yeah, this is a good one. The story I like to tell too was one time, War Admiral was the name of the horse. This goes back a few years.
Seabiscuit.
Yeah, close to that. War Emblem. Sorry, War Emblem.
Okay.
And I couldn't figure out what to bet. And what I did was I bet invested. Every exacta combination you could. So there were 20 horses in the race, 18, 19, something like that. So the math on that is, say it's 18 horses. 18 times 17 times whatever your bet is your payout, is your layout for the exacta. So what 18 times 17 is like $356, something like that, times 1. So if you bet just $1, that bet was going to cost $356. So I bet $10, and they're coming around the last turn. All 4 horses are like 20-1. And all I'm saying is, nobody fall down. Nobody fall down. Just, I don't care who comes in. I have all of you. And that was a wonderful thing. And it paid out great. Like great. Like $1,200 for the exact.
Now this wasn't in the Kentucky Derby, but just the funny. I always, whenever they run the Belmont Stakes now, I always remember when Richie and I were middling TV personalities back in what it was, I think, '08. They Fox had Richie out at the Belmont, and it was, I think that was Big Brown, right? Big Brown was
Yes,
going,
yes, Big Brown.
and it was like 110 degrees, right?
Yes.
Watching Rich just melting. Like,
I was the expert that day at Belmont Park. I almost died.
I think you said Big Brown wasn't going to win either.
Right.
Right? You called it.
Yeah.
All
But
right. Good stuff, guys. Enjoy the Derby tomorrow. Enjoy the basketball. Enjoy the hockey. And we will talk next week.
See you next
that's
week.
good.